So the way I want this review to work is work the problem. Once you get done working the problem, you got your answer. Use the video to check your work. If you don't know how to work the problem or to start, use the video to kind of help you get started. So for number one, distance between 2 points. Because you're given a coordinate plane, that's when you can use the Pythagorean theorem. If you just don't like using the Pythagorean theorem, you can always use the distance formula. So to use Pythagorean theorem, all I would do is I would create my right triangle. And because I want to know how far it is between W and V, I'm trying to find my hypotenuse. So from here, I would count how long my sides are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what that is, that 5 and 6, those are your legs. So I would do 5 squared plus 6 squared equals c squared, which is 25 plus 36. I would add because I'm finding a hypotenuse. So I get 61, then I'll take the square root. And in my calculator, because I get this big decimal, my instructions say to round to the nearest tenth. So the nearest tenth spot would be that. So you can use the distance formula on this problem, but because you're already given the graph, go ahead and draw that right triangle. If you wanted to use distance, because you were already given your ordered pairs in the problem, this would be how you would set that up. So x's first, then my y's. And I would take that whole thing and put that in my calculator at once, and I still get that. So I don't have a preference which one you want to use. Y'all are really good at Pythagorean theorem, and because you're given all the information, Pythagorean theorem works here. But if you are really, really confident about distance formula, because you're already given your ordered pairs, I would say distance formula could also work here too. If you weren't given those ordered pairs and you had to go find them, that would invite some problems, just in case where we forget a negative or we're not so hot at finding ordered pairs. Either way, you should arrive at 7.8 as your final answer. All right, number two, a leg of a right triangle is 30 meters long and the hypotenuse is 35 meters long. What is the length of the other leg? All right, because this word problem actually tells you this is a leg, this is the hypotenuse, find the leg, you don't technically have to get the visual by drawing the picture out. But just for the sake of review, I'm going to go ahead and draw the picture out just to show you what that would mean. All right, so I'm told a leg is 30 meters. Hypotenuse is 35 meters. What is the length of the other leg? So that's what visually they're explaining to me. So I would take all that information, plug it in. Now remember, with legs, you can interchange them. So you could have done 80 squared plus 30 squared equals 35 squared. Remember, legs, you can do either one with. So 30 squared is 900 plus b squared. 35 squared is 1225. Because I'm finding a leg, I'm going to subtract, which y'all are really good at telling me which one to do, whether add or subtract. So b squared equals 325. We'll take the square root. And even though it doesn't specify what to round to, that calculator gave you this. So just keeping in mind that I said don't round to the nearest whole number unless you have to. In this case, what I would do is I would round to the nearest hundredths. So I would round it to 18.03. I wouldn't round it to the nearest whole number. Never round to the nearest whole number unless you are told to. For this problem, you would also need to include your units of meters, or you could just put in. All right, number three, which of the following could be the side measure of a right triangle? So remember, with these kind of problems, all I'm doing is I'm taking each of those side lengths, plugging them into a squared, b squared, and c squared, and seeing which side equals the other side. So with this kind of multiple choice problem, I would take each answer choice, and plug it in and see which one works. So I'm going to do that below. So for A, I would do 10 squared plus 6 squared equals 11 squared. Now remember, your hypotenuse is going to be your biggest side length. So 11, 5, 6, and 15. Those would all be my hypotenuse. Then I would get 100 because I would square it. So that side is 136. 11 squared is 121. So that side cannot be, that side doesn't equal the other side, so A can't be my right triangle. For B, I would do 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. 9 plus 16, which is 25. 5 squared is 25. So I found my right triangle. The problem doesn't say circle all that apply, so you should know that you're only looking for the one. So I've already figured out my answer should be B. But because this is a review, I'm going to go ahead and show you what the rest of it would look like. So for C, I would set up 4 squared plus 2 squared equals 6 squared. 16 and 4 is 20. 6 squared is 36. So you can see that that side doesn't equal that side. Finally, for D, I would do 5 squared plus 10 squared equals 15 squared. 25 and 100 gives me 125. 15 squared gives me 225. So you can see A, C, and D can't be my right answer because the left and the right don't equal each other. B is the only one where the left side equals the right side. Alright, number 4. Find the distance between points R and S shown below. Round to the nearest tenth if necessary. This is another one of those problems where you could use the distance or Pythagorean theorem. My only caution about using the distance formula on this one is you actually have to go through and find the ordered pairs. Which again, remember, the more steps you add in, the greater chance you're going to miss something or mess something up. So with this kind of problem, because I'm not given my ordered pairs, I would probably stick with the Pythagorean theorem. But I'm going to show you how to do both just in case. So I'm going to do the Pythagorean theorem first. Draw my right triangle in. Now I'm going to count up my sides, and I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So those are my legs. I'm trying to find my hypotenuse. So 25 plus 64 equals 6 squared. Add, because I'm trying to find a hypotenuse, excuse me. So 89 equals C squared. Take the square root. And again, I'm told around the nearest tenth. So that would be, square root of 89 would be 9.4. Alright. If you want to be ambitious and try the distance formula on this one, you are more than welcome to. But again, you've got to get those ordered pairs right from the start. So because you're not given the ordered pairs, I would shy away from that. But I'll show you how to do it just in case you want to try it. So first thing I need to do if I'm going to use the distance formula is I've got to get ordered pairs for R and S. R, I'm going over 2 and down 2. So that would be over 2, down 2. For S, I'm going over 7 and up 8. So that would be, I'm going over 7 and up 6. See, I already made a mistake. So what I would do here, once I've got my ordered pairs, then I'm going to plug them into my formula. So X is first, Y is second. Type that in my calculator all at once, and I still get 9.4. Just be very, very cautious with that one. My suggestion would be Pythagorean theorem. But if you're just more comfortable with distance formula and you're confident about picking out ordered pairs, it's up to you. You've got options on this problem. All right, number 5. The beauty of these problems is they've already given you the picture. So you don't have to try to figure out, am I looking for a hypotenuse? Am I looking for a leg? So for number 5, it says, how far up the house is the ladder resting? Round to the nearest tenth if necessary. If I look, I've got a leg and I've got a hypotenuse. So I'm trying to figure out that length there, which is a leg. So I would do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I have a squared plus 9 equals 625. Because I'm trying to find a leg, I'm going to subtract. And again, y'all are really, really good at Pythagorean theorem. I'm going to go ahead and say that you're saying to subtract before I even mention it. All right, my last step is always to take the square root. And I'm told again to round to the nearest tenth. So my answer would be 24.8. And remember, don't forget your units. A lot of us missed points on our quiz last week because we just simply forgot our units. So I'm going to put feet in there. If you want to write it out, you can, F-E-E-T, or you can abbreviate it F-T. Remember, with these, you've got kind of a built-in check system. Legs should be shorter than your hypotenuse, and 24.8 is shorter than 25. Not by much, but it is shorter than 25. So that answer makes sense as a leg. All right, number 6. One leg of a triangle is 6.4 centimeters long. Length of the second leg is 3.5 centimeters. What is the length of the hypotenuse? Round to the nearest tenth. So again, because you're told specifically leg, find the hypotenuse, the picture is semi-unnecessary unless you just like to see the visual. I like to see the visual, so I'm going to draw mine out. So one leg is 6.4, other leg is 3.5. Find the hypotenuse. So I would do 6.4 squared plus 3.5 squared equals c squared. 6.4 squared is 40.96. And even though it tells us around there is 10, it's only 2 decimal places. So when I'm setting up my problem, I'm going to go ahead and write out that whole decimal. That way my answer can be more exact. Especially if this is going to be a multiple choice question. You want it to be even more exact. 3.5 squared would be 12.25. Finding the hypotenuse, I'm going to add. So if I add those together, I would get 40.96 plus 12.25, and I get 53.21 equals c squared. So now I'm going to take the square root of that nasty looking decimal, and I'm told to round to the nearest tenth. So I get 7.2945. So 9 is bigger than 5, so it's going to make that 2 become 3. And because I'm talking about a real world scenario, I'm going to make sure to include my units, and those are centimeters. So 7.3 centimeters. All right, number 7. Cody painted a right triangle on paper. The hypotenuse of his triangle is 18 inches, and one of the legs is 7. What is the length of the third side? So with this problem, you're told a hypotenuse and a leg, but the question just says the third side. So you need to remember, I've got a hypotenuse, I've got a leg. That third side means I need to find the leg. So just to kind of sketch it out, just to clarify, hypotenuse is 18, one leg is 7, that third side is a leg. So let's see, we've got 7 squared, b squared, 18 squared, 49 plus b squared, 18 squared is 324. Finding a leg, so I'm going to subtract. Get the square root, nearest tenth again, so 16.6. I don't see my units are inches, so I'm going to abbreviate IN. And if you want to go and write out inches, that's fine, or inch, that's fine, or IN, that's fine. Just make sure you have those units. Alright, number 8. Davy's log cabin is in the shape of a rectangle. Its dimensions are 40 feet by 24 feet. Find the length of the diagonal of the floor of the cabin in feet. We're going to the nearest 10. Okay, here's one like those word problems that we did in class, where you're not told, here's a leg, find the hypotenuse, or vice versa. So, in the shape of a rectangle, so here's my rectangle, its dimensions are 40 by 24 feet, and we want to find the length of the diagonal. If you remember back, I told you, anytime it asks you to find the length of a diagonal, the length of a ladder, the length of a ramp, those are going to be your hypotenuse. So my diagonal goes this way. So that's what I'm trying to find. So I've got a 40 feet by 24 feet rectangle. So I would do 40 squared plus 24 squared equals c squared. Add, because we're finding a hypotenuse, and take the square root. From the nearest tenth, 46.6 feet. Alright, number 9. In the picture below, Cato is flying his kite. Write and solve an equation to find out how far above Cato's head the kite is. Round your end to the nearest tenth if necessary. Alright, so if we look at our picture, our slanted line, which is our hypotenuse, is 220 feet. The length straight out is 200. We need to find how far above his head that kite actually is. How far above him that kite actually is. So that means we want to find a leg. So we would need to set up whatever our missing leg is. So we would set up that equation. Now we'll simplify it. Careful writing down all those zeros, don't forget any. Alright, find the leg again, so I'm going to subtract. Get rid of b squared, even though the problem says x squared. Stick with b. Minus, subtract that would be 8,400. Square root it, 91. So we're told to the nearest tenth, so 91.7 feet. How far above his head that is. Alright, number 10. Find the distance in units between each pair of points with the given coordinates. Round to the nearest tenth if necessary. So here's the kind of problem where you don't have a graph, so I'm not going to be able to go and just draw in the right triangle. So these kind of problems need to be distance formula, because there's no other option. So my one word of advice on this kind of problem is be careful with your x's and your y's. In A, you should see that you've got decimals. Decimals still going to work the same way. I've got an x and a y, an x and a y. So all I'm going to do now, here's your formula in case you forget. So for A, I'm going to take all my x's, put them together. So 4.25 minus 3.5 squared. Then I'm going to take my y's and put them together. I'm going to type that whole thing in my calculator all at once. I'm not going to clear anything out. I'm not going to scoot anything over. I'm going to type that in exactly as I've presented it right there. When I do that, hit enter, I get 5 point, a whole big long decimal, but if I round it to the nearest tenth, as my instructions say to, I get 5.6. All right, for B, my word of caution on B is watch all those negatives. Your formula is already minus, so when you go to plug in minus something and it's a negative, that's when you have to make sure you do minus and negative. Minus, minus. So we've got -2, minus 5, 4, minus 2. I'm going to type that directly into my calculator, and that gives me a decimal round to the nearest tenth of 6.7. And I would make sure for A and B that you can type that in the calculator correctly. So I would suggest if you did this with me, pause it, go back, type that in, and make sure you're seeing those decimal answers. All right, number 11. An observer is standing 20 feet from a tree with a hanging birdhouse. She is looking at the birdhouse. How far from the ground is the birdhouse? Round to the nearest tenth if necessary. So looking at our picture, we're trying to figure out how high, how far from the ground that birdhouse is. So that means we want to find a leg. So we would have 20 squared plus b squared, or x squared, equals 25 squared. 400 plus b squared, 625. Subtract, we're finding a leg. 25 square root b equals 15. And we're talking about feet. And it was a perfect square root, so no decimals. All right, number 12. Kenneth wants to wrap a collapsible fishing rod in the box shown on the right, technically below. Find the length of the diagonal of the box. Round to the nearest tenth if necessary. So for this picture, you've got a 3D picture, but it's not going to change anything. What we still want to figure out is that diagonal. So even if it's a diagonal, we're still trying to find the hypotenuse. So 18 squared plus 10 squared equals x squared, or c squared, whichever one you want to set up. 324 plus 100 equals x squared. Add, we find the hypotenuse. Square root. Nearest tenth would be 20.6 inches. All right, last one. A triangle has side lengths of 10, 24, and 26 inches. Is a triangle a right triangle? Explain using complete sentences. There's what we want to make sure we don't forget about. So, because it's asking if it's a right triangle, we're going to take those side lengths, plug it into the Pythagorean theorem. Remember, your biggest side is going to be your hypotenuse. And we want to see if the left side equals the right side. So 10 squared is 100. 24 squared is 576. Add together is 676. 26 squared is 676. So because my left side equals my right side, my answer is yes, it is a right triangle. Now's the part where I want to make sure I complete the question, explain using complete sentences. So my answer would be yes, it is a right triangle because. Now, if you notice, I'm not writing in text language, I'm actually writing it out. For the milestone, and for me, I don't want to read text language, like IDK, because, shortened to BC, and all that stuff. Write it out. So, yes, it is a right triangle because, and here's where you can come up with something of why this right here proves it's a right triangle. You could say because the side lengths were constructed in the Pythagorean theorem, because the left side of the Pythagorean theorem equals the right side of the Pythagorean theorem. Whatever you choose to complete that thought, make sure you include something about the Pythagorean theorem. A squared, B squared, and C squared.